Hi. Yeah, I normally don't do this. I'm not the type of person that likes to make videos. I don't. But at the same time, I'm absolutely fucking appalled by what our state's doing. So, I figured, why not? Let's vent. Let's start a YouTube channel. Let's make a podcast. Let's do something about this because it's sickening. I fucking hate it, and anybody should be appalled by this. I should say anybody who's a hardworking individual should be appalled by this. So, our Minnesota, to give you some clarification, I am a U.S. citizen, born and raised in Minnesota. I've been in Minnesota, well, I should say, not fully raised. I've also been raised in Pennsylvania. But for the most part, I've spent the majority of my life here on Earth in Minnesota. Now, I'm angry. I'm livid. Governor Walz and the trifecta had a $17 billion surplus, a $17.6 billion surplus due to lower spending, according to what it was this fucking NPRN News. Yeah, something like that. And I know that's I guess let's even check that. I don't even know what the political affiliation is for that. Those political affiliation / bias. No, it's NPR, not NPR. Yeah, left center bias. That's, yeah. And that's off of Media Bias Fact Check. So they're center. And I'm considered a leftist center too, but I don't fucking feel like it. So, $17 billion surplus and lax spending coupled with everybody moving in, all the rich wigs from New York and California. When COVID hit, I'm pretty sure a lot of that's from that. There's probably also some federal stimulus in there still somehow. I don't have the exact numbers, but I'm sure it's not all from Minnesota taxes. If so, that would be great, because that means Minnesota is thriving. What's not great is the fact that tax cuts were not talked about. In fact, it was tax increases that ended up happening, which makes me believe that we're truly not doing as well as they state we're doing. Because if we were doing as well as they state they're doing, then ideally that would be the mindset to have, which is lower the taxes on the people. That way they have more to spend, and it's a stronger economy. But the U.S. or Minnesota government thinks they know how to spend your money better than you know how to spend their money, even though one of the bills that got signed with part of this surplus is another free lunch program. And for all of you who don't know about the Feeding Our Futures scandal, that's a big issue here in Minnesota, where basically it was the largest scandal ever. Let me actually get the numbers here. Feeding Our Future. It took $250 million from this. It was a fraud that took $250 million from a program that was meant to give free lunches to kids. So Minnesota's already off to a bad track start with the whole free lunch program. I highly doubt that's going to go anywhere positive. And then there's some other nonsense going on through that. There's my dog. He's upset because he wants to go OUT, but I already took him OUT and he just sat there and stared out at the wilderness. So he's inside, and he doesn't like it. But back to the point. So everybody who filed in their 2022, I believe it was. Let me make sure I'm getting that right. Taxpayers they'll be sent to an address the taxpayers used on their 2021 tax returns unless they updated it by the 2021 tax returns. And it's around, and this is off of a AP News article, that I'm getting these numbers, so they may not be entirely accurate, I would assume. But, you know, look where that's getting us, assuming. 950,000, yeah, there we go, numbers. 950,000 checks. Now, as far as I'm aware, there is a cutoff threshold for this, so if you make more than X amount of money, you don't get these checks, which to me is really dumb, because the people who make that type of money, one, they don't need it, but they also pay in the most. It seems like a slap in the face. Why stay here if this is the way our government's going to treat us? I should say you. I'm not part of that. I am very much not part of that. But the $260, well, I paid in $2,000, and I know people who've paid in way more, and I know people who've paid in way less. They're still getting that money. I don't understand how that's fair. If we had a $17 billion surplus, why is that money still there? I mean, it just shouldn't be. We should be taxed less at that point. You'd think personal income tax should go down because, you know, we're doing that well. But that is one of the things I'm about to Google here, is I want to make sure how many people paid personal income tax in Minnesota. Minnesota 2021. If they're basing it off of that, let's base the search off of that. Annual statistics, Minnesota Department of Revenue. So income tax. Oh, they're only giving me the 2020 year. Looking at the data. Wow, they're really not giving a lot back, if that's the case. I'd be even more pissed off at that point. I guess I'd have to figure out what it's actually based off of, and then look at the numbers there. But if that's the case, there's the tax year for 2020, individual income tax samples, selected fields from Federal Form 1040, Table A, Federal Adjusted Gross Income, less than zero, 30,662. 0 to 5,000, it's 499, but I'm gonna round up $1. Is 179,000, almost 178,000. 5,000 to 10,000 is 161,000, almost 162,000. 10,000 to 20,000 is $281,000. 20 to 30 is $278,000, and if about 1 million people really got paid out. I mean, there's the bracket 50,000 to 100,000, and it looks like that's where the majority of Minnesotans sit, is 751,000. I mean, that's a slap in the fucking face. That's way more than half the state isn't getting this money back, which is, again, really fucking stupid, because according to the same article, we're still having $7 billion on just that isn't really going to anything. There's no plan for it. And then they, one of the other things they brought up was there's more protections on abortion. Minnesota has had abortions codified by our Constitution since the 90s. Like, we can't, on a state level, that's been a thing. They can't take that away. The moment the Supreme Court did what they did, they just gave it to the states to decide. So we're arguing about something we already have on the books. It's a waste of time. I mean, what the fuck? And then so okay, so this is the year I was born. In 1995, the Minnesota Supreme Court founded that our state constitution protects our right to decide and have abortions and to get abortions care. This measure that abortions are legal in Minnesota. This is from 1995. Just a quick little Google search, all right? So I'm not pulling this out of my ass. This is a legitimate thing we have, and our legislation is arguing over whether or not we should have abortions. I mean, they're passing bills. They're spending time on something we already have. I don't get it. I'd get fired for repeatedly doing the same shit over and over and over again. I mean, my boss is going to be pissed. Why aren't you guys? Why are we still electing them over and over and over again? But it's besides the point. So they did that, and then they passed some other shit, and from the sounds of it, there's some gun stuff in here, which, surprise to no one, it's probably not going to affect anything. The wide-reaching measures, and this is from AP News again, the wide-reaching set of measures includes founding for free school meals, which is what I mentioned about the Feeding Our Futures program, which is why I brought that up. Free tuition at public colleges, that one's going to get struck down. There's no fucking way that's staying, because our federal Supreme Court has shot down free college on the taxpayer's dime. That's not happening. It's just not. You can blame whoever you want to, but the reality is you don't want to be paying for my medicinal, medical practice, whatever fucking stupid, unnecessary diploma. You don't. I don't want to be paying for it either. And that's actually why I didn't go to college. I purposely didn't do that. But that's a different story. So we have that. And then one of the things I am kind of happy to see was the paid family and medical leave program. I am happy to see that. That's a good thing. But then we get to this. Health insurance regardless of immigration status. All right? Why the fuck are we allowing illegal immigrants to get free health care? What does that do for us? Why am I paying for that? And then you get into the portion where Minnesota legally has nothing that states illegals can't vote in the state of Minnesota. It's not illegal. All you need to vote is a ID of some sort. It doesn't need to be government issued. And then you need a piece of mail with an address on it and or a bill. That's all you need to register to vote in Minnesota. It's ridiculous. But it's okay, because we don't really have we're on the Canadian border. It's not like, they're shipping illegals out here now. And mind you, I vote right. I am all the fucking polls and shit, all the tests I've taken state I am a center left, but as I stated earlier in the video, I don't feel center left. I don't agree that kids should be showing pornography. I don't agree that we should be allowing transgender reassignment surgeries we don't even allow kids to have tattoos. Why are we allowing them to get life-altering surgeries? It makes no sense. And then on top of that, stuff like the gun statistics. Okay, why are we including 19-year-olds in homicide statistics? Is the only reason we're doing that is because it bolsters the claim of how dangerous guns are? It's very silly. We wouldn't do that with any other thing. Why are we doing it with that? Are we going to include 19-year-olds in obese epidemics? Are we gonna start including 24-year-olds in mental health statistics for children? It just seems stupid. But that's a different story again. So the other thing too, and they mentioned this, and I'm going to look more into this because I don't like it. So again, they touch on the gun violence prevention, which is probably referring to the red flag laws, which inherently don't work because the people that are intended to work for, those families tend not to use them for whatever fucking reason. I don't understand it. Uvalde is a great example. The mother knew that the child had weapons. How they got them, that's an argument for a different day, but it was no. You best not be chewing my shoe. I think he's chewing Sanders. Stupid dog. But yeah, so red flag laws exist. That could have been stopped. And then we get to, that was the one in Chicago where the guy dressed up as a woman to get away. His family knew he had mental problems. He still had a gun. Red flag laws exist. And on top of that, the gun he had, he technically shouldn't have been allowed to have, period, because it's technically an illegal gun in the state of Illinois. But, again, that's a different topic for a different day. It's just, we have these laws, but when they need to be used, they're not used. It's more often than not that your vindictive ex or a child or a neighbor that saw you have it might pull you over for it. Or they might tell you, hey, we don't like the fact he was yelling the other day. He was angry at something, and maybe your football team lost. Maybe you had a bad day at work and you just came home and you just needed to vent. Maybe you're playing video games and you're just on a bad losing streak. But something like that, and then your neighbors report you to the cops. Hey, we know he has firearms, and it's like you just had a bad day. It doesn't matter, and it's dumb. It is dumb, and but the thing I'm going to look more into is because I don't like this voting rights expansion. What else? Who else are we giving voting rights to? From my understanding, like I stated, Minnesotans already have the right to vote in local and state elections. The only people who are going to get voting rights are going to be illegals. I mean, there's no other fucking... I can't think of another class, another group that doesn't have the ability to already vote that would get the right to vote. And at that point, we're openly admitting that U.S. citizens who pay taxes don't matter at that point, because illegals don't come here and get jobs that pay taxes. They get here and they pay jobs that don't pay taxes. They ship that money to their families outside of the U.S. and then they just end up getting deported eventually. I mean, there's a fucking stone mill not that far away from me who every like fucking 2 years they clean house. They fucking get arrested and they deport them all. But they work for cash under the table. The company pays a $10,000 fine and that's that. I mean, in 2 years they make fucking way more than that. It's nothing. You're doing nothing. And so these people aren't paying into the system that they're benefiting from, especially now that they're getting health insurance. So that means that, again, more taxes on the people who actually pay into the system. And mind you, I'm paying a lot, all right? Over $2,000 a year of my money goes to state, and then over I think $3,000 goes to federal, and then we're still not talking about Medicare or Medicaid. I make $46,000 a year. I only see about 35,000. That's not enough to live in Minnesota. But that's the average, well, it was the average salary. I thought it was. But, I mean, I'm close to the threshold. I doubt that 50,000 to 99,000 bracket. From my understanding, from what I've done research on, the median in Minnesota is about 77 to 73. Different sources say different things, but even that seems highly skewed. I'm assuming there's a lot of corporate jobs and or bank jobs related in the cities. I can't imagine what other institutions. Nursing, I guess, in Minnesota. There's, I think I saw a bunch of stuff about that. But other than that, I mean, there's not. On top of that, the average age of the individual in Minnesota is now, I think it's 47, which that should be concerning. If the average age is 47, especially considering automation and all that other nonsense coming into play. If they're expecting half the population to not be working, and most of our income comes from working individuals, there's going to be a problem there. There's going to be a big problem, especially if their goal is to tax corporations more. Well, how the fuck are they going to tax corporations more if they already tax them and they don't pay, or they don't pay enough? I mean, the logic just doesn't add up. But that's Minnesota votes for. Speaking of that, that is a good thing too. Minnesota is not. It's no longer a deep blue state. I will 100% admit that the legislation, both the House and the Senate in Minnesota, are slim majorities of Democrats and Republicans. And then Governor Walz and Keith Ellison almost lost their elections their re-elections, which is phenomenal. If you look at the numbers, if this trend keeps up, Minnesota will vote in a Republican gubernatorial candidate within probably 5 to 10 years, and that we will have a Republican trifecta probably within 15. I would think that. And whether or not it's a slim majority at that point, I don't know. And if they win it back, that's a different story. But looking at everything that's going on, with how displeased everything is, with how expensive everything is, with how the state's just been going, and the fact that, like, this is a great example, $17.6 billion in surplus, and not a single conversation was brought about reducing the tax burden on the average working person. Instead, we give net negatives, more health insurance, more rights. We vote away our own. It's crazy. But and then we argue about stuff we already have on the books. That's another big thing. But either way, Minnesota is changing. It's a slow process. The people who left, I mean, I wish they would have stayed. I wish they would have voted and changed their voting pattern. But the reality is the people who have the money to move out are the people who don't have the money to vote or to move out are stuck with the voting habits of the rest of us. And it's just, it needs a change. But either way, my dog definitely needs to go OUT. And hopefully I'll do this again. Either way. Peace.